The yellow light on your car dashboard comes on and you groan. So you reach across to the glove compartment, you get out the car handbook, and if you read washer fluid low, you relieve, it's a sigh of relief, and you think, oh good, okay, I can sort that. But if you read engine temperature, stop the car immediately, drive any further and you risk destroying the engine, you have a choice. Do you heed the warning and call out Mr. RAC to rescue you, or do you ignore it? God's prophets, warning lights, helping God's people get safely to their destination. Isaiah flashing the yellow warning light in round about 700 BC. On the right-hand side of the pew sheet, I have just given some dates showing how Isaiah sits in world history. All these dates are BC, that's why they go backwards. And you can see, top box, some of the key people and the events pre-Isaiah. And at that time, in the surrounding world, it wasn't America, it wasn't Russia, it wasn't China. The Assyrians were the world superpower, and they lasted from 745 BC down to 605 BC, when the Babylonians conquered them. But we are the middle box, we are Isaiah's time. 722, this is during Isaiah's time. The Assyrians, they conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, and 701 BC, they also had a good go at conquering Judah with its capital Jerusalem, but they failed. More of that in a moment. And box 3, far into Isaiah's future, 586 BC, the Babylonians. They would conquer Jerusalem and march the people into slavery. And amazingly, God spoke to Isaiah of box 3. He spoke to Isaiah of the future. And chapter 22, we hear Isaiah saying to Judah and its capital Jerusalem, this is what it's going to look like when the Babylonians come. And you can see my first heading, Isaiah weeps while Jerusalem parties. 22 verse 1, a prophecy against Jerusalem, which Isaiah calls the Valley of Vision. What troubles you now that you have gone up on the roofs, you town so full of commotion, you city of tumult and revelry? Your slain were not killed by the sword, nor did they die in battle. All your leaders have fled together. They have been captured without using the bow. All you who were caught were taken prisoner together, having fled while the enemy was still far away. Therefore I said, turn away from me, let me weep bitterly. Do not try to console me over the destruction of my people. Isaiah weeps bitterly because he sees what is ahead in 100 plus years' time. Their leaders are not going to be killed in battle. No, they are going to run for their lives when the Babylonians march on Jerusalem. Isaiah weeps for his city, Jerusalem. But in contrast, the lifestyle that Jerusalem has adopted, verse 2, a city of tumult and revelry. Just look sideways, look across to verse 13. But see, there is joy and revelry, slaughtering of cattle and killing of sheep, eating of meat and drinking of wine. Let's eat and drink, you say, for tomorrow we die. Let me answer one question head on. So is the Lord against partying and feasting and enjoying life? No, not in the slightest. But there is all the difference in the world between an occasional treat and a lifestyle of extravagance and excess. Eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. No boundaries, no thought of others, no consequences. And this not a one-off celebration, this a lifestyle. Back in chapter 5, Isaiah has already said, and this was not a compliment, Jerusalem, you are heroes at drinking wine, you are champions at mixing drink. And as is often the case with such a lifestyle, it was accompanied by arrogance and entitlement and a profound lack of generosity. Inevitable, don't you think? If you live for yourself and your family and your friends, you're not living for others. Any generosity is at best tossing crumbs. And that was Jerusalem. A city that partied, a city that lived for itself. At the heart of the universe is God, whose generosity has spilled over to his creation, made in his image, made to be people of generosity. God gives us wealth, yes, to enjoy, but primarily so that we can be generous to others. People of God, if we are not more generous than our friends and neighbours on a similar income, more generous by a mile, we're just missing something. That is why God trained his people to count the first 10% of their income as belonging to the Lord. He was teaching them, he's teaching us to be generous. The warning light flashes. Isaiah weeps while Jerusalem parties. Secondly, deceived by my abilities, achievements, and lifestyle. One of the most helpful verses I know about lifestyle comes from the book of Proverbs. O God, I beg you, give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me just enough to satisfy my needs. For if I grow rich, I may deny you and say, who is the Lord? And if I'm too poor, I may steal and thus insult God's holy name. I have hard news for every one of us in this building this morning. No, he has not given us poverty. Thankfully, we are not among the 1 billion people trying to survive on less than $3 a day. But here's the wise thing the hard thing we are wise to recognize. He has given us riches. Which means that we are in danger, as Jerusalem was, of saying, who is the Lord? I don't need him. Who is the Lord? I'm too busy enjoying my lifestyle. Verses 8 to 11, if you cast your eyes down them, verses 8 to 11, Isaiah is pointing to Jerusalem's self-reliance. Their self-reliance on their abilities, their achievements, their lifestyle they had built for themselves. If you look down the verses, you'll see reference to their weapons, their city walls, a reservoir they had built so that if sieged, they would have water in the city. And yes, verses 13 and 14, their lifestyle. Isaiah is looking forward, warning that the Lord will act in judgment against them by bringing the Babylonians, but he's referring here to these verses of how they did deal with the Assyrians. And you can see on the pew sheet 701 BC, in the middle of Isaiah's ministry, the Assyrians sieged Jerusalem, and in God's goodness and mercy, they failed. But humanly speaking, Assyria failed because Jerusalem did all the things listed in verses 8 to 11. Verse 8, the palace of the forest, that was probably their treasury, maybe their armory. They looked to their wealth and to their weapons. Verses 9 and 10, they saw that their city wall was crumbling, so they tore down some houses and other buildings and used the stones to rebuild the wall. Water supply for a siege, they built a reservoir. And the Assyrians were not successful. Aren't we marvelous? Jerusalem thought. Verse 11, no, you're not, said Isaiah. Verse 11, you built a reservoir between the two walls for the water of the old pool, but you did not look to the one who made it, or to have regard for the one who planned it long ago. Let me again say something sobering about us. Not only are we wealthy, we are competent. In your mind's eye, if you look round the people of our congregation, collectively, we are an incredibly gifted and competent and skilled people. I'm looking at all of you. So some of you have done amazing things in your families, in your working life, in our community. And just as wealth brings danger, competency does also. That there is a danger of self-sufficiency. The self-sufficiency that doesn't go quite so far as saying, I don't need God. I don't think any of us would say, I don't need God. Rather, I don't need God that much. I can do life. I can do life until I get stuck, and that's when I need God. I can do this. I just need a bit of a help now and then. Is that me? Is that you? I'm often struck by that line, give us today our daily bread. But I don't need God to give me bread today. I don't need God to give me bread, I think. I can provide my own bread. I've got the money, I've earned the money, I can get to the shop. I'm not reliant on God for bread. Am I not? Do I really need God? Or have I relegated him to being my assistant when I get a bit stuck? Am I reliant on him, or really am I self-reliant? And not just for my food, for my salvation, When I die and I face Jesus and he asks why I am worthy to enter his heaven, if I answer by listing all the good things I have done, all the bad things I have avoided doing, that will count for nothing. The only answer that will open the gate is one that flows from my deep understanding that I am utterly unworthy, and that Jesus has made me worthy by dying in my place, taking my unworthiness on him, and him gifting me his worthiness. The yellow warning light is flashing. Isaiah weeps while Jerusalem parties, deceived by my lifestyle, my abilities, my achievements, living as though this life was it. Thirdly, living as though this life was it. If this life is it, I suppose it is wise to live for today, to live for me and my family. To enjoy it while I can, because, as the saying goes, you only live once. Eat and drink for tomorrow, we die. Yes, there is here a relentless pursuit of pleasure, but I also think here there's an element of drowning our sorrows, isn't there? Eat and drink and be merry, because tomorrow I die. And maybe Isaiah's next point is the nub of his warning, the sin that cannot be forgiven. Verse 14, the Lord Almighty has revealed this in my hearing. Till your dying day, this sin will not be atoned for, says the Lord Almighty. What is the sin that cannot be atoned for? The unforgivable sin that Jerusalem is warned of, that we are warned of, it is self-reliance. I don't know if you read that terrible story in the news a couple of weeks ago. I just happened to have it, read it as I was preparing this. That bus, do you remember this? That bus breaking down in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and 49 of the 51 people 2 weeks ago dying of thirst. Not one of them would have said, well, a drink of water would be quite nice. Not one of them would have said, well, we don't need a rescuer. Kingdom people, we realize that we desperately rely on God for everything. The yellow warning light is flashing. Isaiah weeps while Jerusalem parties, deceived by my abilities, my achievements, my lifestyle, living as though this life were it. The sin that cannot be forgiven. But now we come to the man with the key. I'm going to go on just a bit beyond the verses we read, because Isaiah ends this chapter with the story of two men. Verse 15, there is a man called Shebna, who is the palace administrator, and he had lived his life living for himself. And it seems that he had commissioned a beautiful tombstone so that his name would live on. Verse 15, this is what the Lord Almighty says. Go, say to this steward, to Shebna, the palace administrator, what are you doing here, and who gave you permission to cut out a grave for yourself here, hewing your grave on the height and chiseling your resting place in the rock? Beware, the Lord is about to take firm hold of you and hurl you away, you mighty man. Shebna epitomizes the self-reliant, self-congratulating Jerusalem. Note the irony, just like us, Shebna was meant to be the steward of God's resources. But there was a second man called Eliakim. We're in verse 20. We keep saying that Isaiah is all about the Jesus who was to come in 700 years later. Who does Eliakim remind us of? Verse 20, in that day I will summon my servant Eliakim, son of Hilkiah. I will clothe him with your robe and fasten your sash around him and hand your authority over to him. He will be a father to those who live in Jerusalem and to the people of Judah. I will place on his shoulder the key to the house of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. Eliakim, was he the Messiah? No, the weight of that job could only fall on Jesus. But the key to truly entering the house of David, a picture of God's eternal kingdom, that key is held by Jesus. We keep saying it, for God so loved the world that he sent his only Son, Jesus, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. The ultimate man with the key is Jesus. Isaiah's weeping. No, my final heading, which I've taken from Psalm 30, weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. Isaiah weeps while Jerusalem parties. The yellow warning light is flashing. Isaiah is saying, Jerusalem, people of God, why are you not weeping? Weeping over your self-sufficiency, weeping over your self-reliance, weeping over your preoccupation with yourself and your lifestyle. Why are you not using the wealth God has given you generously and wisely? Why are you living as though there were no day of judgment, no heaven, no hell? Why have you no concern for injustice? Why have you no concern to invest in the salvation of others? We rightly weep, we rightly mourn. But then comes joy because we hear of the man with the key. We sob before the man with the key. We sob before Jesus. And against all our expectations, we are assured of forgiveness and transformation and life. Psalm 30, he turns my wailing into dancing. He removes my sackcloth and clothes me with joy. My heart sings his praises and will not be silent.